What's up? Today, I'm going to show you how to make a rework edit. Okay, so a rework edit. What is it exactly? There's multiple definitions for it. It's kind of like a broad term, but how I classify a rework is when it's not like a full-on remix and it's not an edit. It's like somewhere in between. So you've put a little bit more into it. There's like some processing. There might be some like drums or effects added, and it might be like a cool mashup, or you're changing something that way. So reworks, redrums, and edits are all kind of like mixed and intertwined, but a rework, in my opinion, requires a little bit more time and effort than a redrum or a standard DJ edit. And also, if you guys have not heard, starting the 1st of March, every week I'm going to be releasing a brand new edit pack on my Patreon. So I'll leave a link to that in the description if you guys are interested. Aside from my edits for heavy hits, all the edits that I can't put on heavy hits are going to be going on my Patreon. So I usually make about, including clean and dirties, I make about like 50 edits a week. So it's like a lot of edits that I'm putting out consistently, but some of those edits haven't been able to be released, so I found an avenue to release them that way. So I'm going to be using Patreon soon, so if you're interested, check it out and support me so I'm not homeless or am using OnlyFans for other reasons. But enough of the jabbering. I'll give you guys a little preview of what we are working with today. Make it clap. Spread your legs on, watch your back, go up and down and make it clap. Spread your legs on, watch your back, go up and down and make it clap. Spread your legs on, watch your back, go up and down and make it clap. Go up and down, make it clap. Make it clap, clap. Legs on, make it clap. I think it sounds pretty good. I've been on a big dance hall kick recently, and I took the instrumental from Sean Paul's Get Busy, and then I put the acapella of Express Yourself over top of it by Diplo, and chopped it up a bunch, and then added some drums and effects just to spice it up a little bit. So starting off, I just added a simple side chain. I do this pretty much at the start of every single track I do. I always set it on like the top section and make it like a dark or a really light shade just so it stands out. And then I turn the volume all the way down because the sidechain doesn't need to have the volume on for it to still activate. But I'll just show you guys what the sound is. So it's just a simple like metronome click. That's all it is. It's nothing complicated. And that's what I use for the sidechain for all of my effects and the percussions, which you'll see. And then just below that are all the original like mastered tracks. Get Busy, this was in the early 2000s. So right now everyone's like super obsessed with this like below 100 hertz, just like booming low end. So I did notice that it wasn't like lacking low end. I just thought it could have used a little boost. So I did boost it a little bit from 100 hertz and below. And I just did that by adding a low shelf and then just doing a slight boost. And then the only other thing that I did differently here was I added a tape stop effect. So you can, instead of using plugins, if you don't have it, you can actually make your own tape stop effects in Ableton using this method. If you take the sample that you want to make a tape stop of, like this. So that section right there is what I made a tape stop of. So how I did that was I chopped the sample up that I wanted. I switched it to Complex, not Complex Pro. And then once I switched it to Complex, if you go into the envelope section and hit clip and transposition, you can then automate the transposition. I don't even know the correct words for it. It's like, you're basically doing like transposition modulation, which sounds super nerdy, but is what it is. So without it, it sounds like this. Just your standard sound. But with the automation, it's its own tape stop effect. With that added, it sounds like this. Put your legs spread wide and your head down low. Take your round the rocker, mix your round the rocker, work your round the. So I really want to add that break there, and that's how I did it. And then moving on, I just did some simple chopping of the acapella. I automated the delay to come in and out with a ping pong effect. I wanted it to have a little more stereo width on the delay. So I just selected ping pong here on the end just to give it that bounce effect. And then I added a little bit of reverb in certain sections if I didn't want delay. So where that break is after that tape stop, I put some reverb there just so it would cover that little bit of empty space. And that was pretty much it for the original tracks. Down here, there's another duplicate delay that I did, just some basic EQ stuff here as well, just rolling off the low end. I would also like to take today to have a moment of silence for the splitting of a legendary group. One more time. No, I am not one of the half members of Daft Punk. They've been a group longer than I've been alive, if I'm not mistaken. But I did have a gig one time where they wanted me to dress up like a member of Daft Punk, and that is why I have this helmet. So starting with the drums, it's just a simple top loop. That's all it is. I just made a top loop just to add some grooves, some momentum to the track. Pretty simple, nothing too crazy, but it does add a little bit of groove, and that sort of was what I was looking for when I was making this edit, because I'd already had that cool like mashup with the effects going on, and I just wanted to add some effects and some drums then to just sort of spice things up. And to enhance these drums after EQing it, I actually did some sidechain here, which, like I said, I'm just sidechaining it to the actual section that says sidechain, just to let that kick and that low end from the original track come through more. I also have an auto filter going on, and what this auto filter is doing is it's kind of like low passing in and out the percussion section so that it helps with the transition in between like verse, chorus, so on and so forth. The reason I did this was because sometimes it can sound like a little harsh, a little sudden. So I do this a lot when I'm making a redrum, a remix, rework, stuff like that, just to help with the transitions. You'll see auto filters on almost everything I'm doing when we get into like remixes and stuff like that. It just helps with the transition of things. But I did do some parallel compression. So I have the parallel compressor here in a return track. So using this parallel compressor, I talked about this previously. I use it typically to add a little more crunch and what I would use as the term is width to the sound, because I'm feeding a very overcompressed signal back into the original signal. So on this send here, I just added a little bit of parallel compression. So I'll A and B it so you guys can hear the difference. So just a subtle difference, but it does help it cut through a little bit more, and it does help widen the sound. I also added a little bit of drum reverb. I did put this in the template for you guys that I sent, so it is in a previous video as well if you would like to download that. So on this return track, I just use it just to add a little bit more, just like a slightest bit of reverb. I use this typically, like the drum reverb is for my percussive elements, so I just use this reverb just to add and fill that little bit of space in between the hits. And then I also then sidechained it to the sidechain section. I do this with all of my reverbs. This is a great way to help make your mixes a little bit cleaner. I always sidechain my reverbs to the sidechain. And then lastly, we have the effects section. This is pretty standard stuff here, nothing too complicated. Just a lot of effects with reverb and delay, just adding a little bit of, how would I describe it? I'm using these effects just to carry the track a little bit further and enhance like crescendos and decrescendos, so the loud portions and the quieter portions using risers, falls, so on and so forth. And with this white noise fall, I used an auto pan. I just did this because I wanted to have a little more movement to the sound. This effect already had a little bit that was put on it, but I thought I could use more for this track, so I just did an auto pan that way. And then the last two effects was just a little riser. And then just a light laser kind of fall in the background. This was just to fill up some of the dead space that I noticed when the vocal wasn't on the track. And that was it, to be honest. The effects section I also sidechained as well. You can see the common denominator here is to sidechain pretty much everything that isn't the key element. So the key element is that like low end. It's not even like a kick that it has going on. It's kind of like a tom that's going on. That's like the low end for the track. And I sidechained pretty much everything to the sidechain because the sidechain is then mimicking where the tom is hitting. Alrighty, ladies and gents, that wraps it up for today's video. Hopefully you learned something new. If you did, make sure to like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I will be back next week, and I'll be showing you guys how to make your own battle break edits. So if you're doing like a routine or something cool like that, and you want to make your own little DJ tools that you have, I'm going to show you guys how to make those in Ableton. But until then, take it easy, tell someone you love them, all of that good stuff, and I'll be back soon.